everyone, and welcome to another Thursday Things. Today is all about water and winter. So hello, if you haven't met me before, my name's Marianne and I'm the creator of Naturilla, which is a source of information to help you to heal your horse, mind, body and soul naturally. So obviously we're in December, hence the Christmas jumper, and obviously the weather is winter now, so it's getting colder. We've been quite lucky so far, touch wood, touch all sorts of wood, in that it has been fairly mild so far, so we'll have to see what January and February bring us though. So it hasn't been particularly cold right now, which is great. I think we had a few cold nights about a month ago where we had minus weather, but that's fine. But obviously, when you think winter, you think cold, and obviously when it's cold, your water ice is over. So what can you do, and what do your horses do when it comes to ice in your water? So when I first had the Major, when I had him through his first winter, because I actually got him on the 10th of December, so it was recently our anniversary, so that was amazing. But obviously, I'd never had a horse before. He was my first baby, and I was just like, I don't like the fact that there's ice on this water trough. So I broke the ice and chucked it out, thinking, okay, it'll take longer for it'll refreeze and it'll be thinner because he'll be at it more, in my naive thinking. And I was told by the yard, and I don't do that because you're just wasting water, because you're just chucking perfectly good water that's turned to ice out of the water trough. I was like, here I was thinking I was helping, and no. I was also told, obviously, that he huffs on the ice, and that's how he creates a patch, which then he drinks from. I was like, okay, cool. But I noticed that every winter that I had him on that livery yard, he wasn't really drinking that much. He was getting dehydrated. It wasn't good, and when he was stable, because he was stabled over the winter, he would also get puffy legs and he would have trouble peeing. So I was like, oh, this isn't great, And it all stemmed down to the fact that A, he didn't have enough movement, and B, he didn't drink that much. Now, we did have a theory, which we think is currently correct, that he doesn't do well with tap water, which is why I have a rainwater harvesting system, which is just a fancy way of saying all my gutters go into water bowsers. So that's fresh rainwater, and they seem to really appreciate it. So that helps, but obviously the fact that it's colder anyway, they don't seem to drink as much. My water levels definitely don't go down as quickly, even though they're still on hay, and in fact they're on a slightly increased level of hay because they don't have the hedgerows to eat from and munch their way across and that sort of thing. So they're on extra hay, so you'd think they'd be drinking more, but it doesn't seem to be that way, which I can understand. You know, if you're trying to keep warm and it's cold outside and you then got cold water to drink, it cools you down, doesn't it? So maybe you don't want to drink as much. So when it comes to water on the yard, I do my best to make sure that it doesn't crack, doesn't ice over. So the water trough that's on the yard is connected to one of the water bowsers, so it automatically fills itself up from the water bowser, which comes from rainwater from the guttering off the stables. So they use that the most, and it's actually embedded into the ground. So it's only a few inches of plastic above the ground, the rest of it is embedded. Now that does actually help, because the ground is going to be slightly warmer than the earth, because obviously than the air, because obviously if your water trough is out of the ground, it's got all that cold air that can wrap around it and go around it, and wind and everything. It just cools it down just that little bit faster, which I think is why my water trough on the yard is actually more popular during the winter, because of the fact that it's probably just that slightly bit warmer. Now, I'm not saying it's mega warmer, it is just like probably a degree or something warmer. I do know that some people do actually have heated water troughs, which would be absolutely amazing, but not something that I've invested in so far. So yeah, so the fact that that water trough on the yard is embedded into the ground, I think that that reduces the fact that it reduces the amount of ice is over, and the fact that it's almost in constant use by all 5 of my herd. I think that that also helps, and it doesn't really ice over that much. And if it does, it's very thin ice, and it's very easy for them to huff on it and crack it. So that's really, really good. But also on my yard, I also have a permanent sort of bucket with water in. Now it's in a tyre. It's actually an old feed bucket, and it's sat inside this motorbike tyre so that they can't knock it over very readily. And what I have in there constantly for them is a bucket that is full of water with about 10 drops of peppermint oil, good quality, medicinal, pharmaceutical grade peppermint oil. Now, I think you're probably thinking, hey, what do you do that for? Now, obviously, peppermint is tasty, so it does encourage them to drink. But that's not entirely why I have it on there. Now, because it's oil on a water, it does reduce the amount that it freezes, which is also a good benefit. But I find in the winter that their stomachs need that little bit of help. They need that little bit of assistance, and it just helps them cope better through the winter. Not to say that they don't really cope very well, but I do find that when I have that bucket of water with peppermint oil on the top, they seem to be calmer, they seem to be more content, and their bodies seem to use the nutrients within the hay or whatever bucket feeds they're on if you're the major. They seem to use it better. It's like their digestive system is flowing better, so it's just better. So I always have that on the yard. And especially this winter, I've been very, very religious over the past year in making sure that they've got that constantly. Now, over the summer months, it was very helpful, especially when the spring grass was coming through. Now, my horses are on a paddock paradise track system, but that doesn't mean that they don't have access to some grasses, whether it's on the edge of the electric fence or in some of the bigger areas, which are my freestanding areas or their rolling areas, which does have just that little bit of grass that does grow. And obviously they have constant access to hedgerows, which means it's extra stuff that could possibly upset their equilibrium in their digestive system, which means they can get splats. So to help them with that, the peppermint oil is there, and it does wonders. I've had hardly any splats this year, which has been awesome. So it's great for the spring. And then going into the autumn as well, when the world is changing again and they're coming off those hedgerows because they're not growing anymore, or there's no access to that grass, or the grass that they have got a small amount of access to is not very nutritious, so it's again a change in their gut biome. So to help them through that process, to make sure that they don't have any issues, the peppermint oil is also there as well. And let me tell you, that bucket is refilled by me daily because they do drink it. That's all 5 of them. They have free access to it. They do. And I find that throughout the winter, it's great for their bodies just to help them, especially if you think about it. If you're outside and you're munching on a tiny bit of grass that might be accessible to you, or even the hay that you've got has actually frozen slightly because of the weather, because it's, I don't know, rained on and it's gone cold or whatever, maybe your tummy doesn't need that little extra help. So having that peppermint oil, again, really, really helpful. So I found that that is the best combination so far. Now, my water troughs in my fields are out of the ground. So I do find that those do ice over a lot more readily. But the one on the yard is the one that I am quite happy to use. Now, I don't know what I'm going to do going forward, whether I'm just going to leave it as it is, or whether we're going to think about embedding some of the water troughs a bit more, or look into the heated water troughs a bit more, because that would be awesome. That would be really cool. And I'd want to play with that a bit. Who wouldn't? And yeah, just have a little bit of an investigate into it, I think. So I also am very, very conscious of the mineral deficiencies that can sometimes happen during the winter as well. So I know this is slightly off topic, but I always have a bucket of salt on the yard as well. So it's sea salt, because that's got the most nutrients in it, the most minerals and elements and things like that. So it's really, really good for them. And I just have an old feed bucket on the yard with this salt in it. And I cover the bottom, and I probably fill it up once every 2 weeks. And also having that salt there for them to lick and go through, then encouraging them to drink more. So again, it's about encouraging them to drink more so that their bodies are in a better place, so that they can process what they've eaten, so that they can not have fluid build up in their legs because they've been standing around, because they've been in the stables where they've got free access to, because it's raining outside or it's too windy, or it's whatever decision that they've made. So having that salt on, that encouragement to drink, that peppermint on the yard, again, encouragement to drink, as well as stomach soothing. I found that that seems to be a good combination on my yard to help them through the winter. And as I say, having those on the yard also means that there's less issue with ice, which is just, I love it. I absolutely love it. So obviously also in the winter, I also have to deal with the fact that the ground is wet and they've got water in the fields that they have to deal with. Now, I live on a heath. The land that they're on is on a heath, so it does get quite damp quite easily. And the water doesn't seem to go anywhere. I mean, if you saw my photos on the Facebook page of last winter, you saw how much it flooded, and it was just ridiculous. And they were walking through that on a daily basis. And when you've got cobs that have got the feathers on their legs, and it's just a bit, it doesn't seem fair to them to have that much dampness on them. But, and it's a big but, they don't seem to have issues with mud fever or rain scald or anything like that. I put that down to the constant movement, because they've always got someone to go. They've always got to go and have a drink. They've always got to go and have a nibble on something. Or what's the major doing over there? Or little ninjas chucking me about, and what do I do? So it's constant movement. And that is just so great for their system, so great for their legs. And because it's a natural movement for them. And their hooves, I know they don't look like it, but they do actually expand and contract as they walk along. And that helps the blood to circulate up and down the legs. So it's helping to replenish the fluids in the legs, helping to regenerate the cells on the skin. And it's just really, really good. And I'm so thankful that I've got my herd on that track system, especially last year. Check the photos out, because they were literally trudging through lots of water. Now, I couldn't figure out whether the water was better than all the mud they sometimes trod through, because obviously that's still collecting on the skin. In my eyes, the water was better, because at least it wasn't grainy stuff that was irritating the skin in their feathers as well. But we'll see what this winter gives us, see whether it gets cold enough for stuff to ice over, see whether it gets wet enough for them to be trudging through water. But yeah, it's really, I didn't really think about the impact of water on my herd until about this last winter, when it just completely flooded, and having the major as well, and having seen the impact of him not drinking enough, it made me look into a few things, made me try and figure out a few things and see what I could do for the benefit of him and for my entire herd going forward. I mean, the major, I always put salt in his bucket. Now, I know that I preach don't put anything in their bucket feed, because they should have free choice. But, and this is a big but, me doing the salt into his bucket has made a big impact on him. I think it has truly helped his body over the past year, and encouraged him to drink. Every time he comes out of that stable, he now goes and has a drink. And as far as I've seen since we've been here, and since I've been putting salt in his bucket, he has had no issues peeing, he has had no puffy legs. It has been a real game changer for him. Now, there is a limit of how much salt I put in his bucket, because he won't eat if it's a certain saltiness, which I completely agree with him. I wouldn't eat things that are really salty either. So we found a balance of what works best for him, in the best way possible for him. So salty enough to have an impact, but not so salty that it puts him off his food. And it's something that I don't do with the other members of the herd, purely because they actually use their salt bucket. The major gets pushed about so much that I don't feel he has the ability to have what he needs off the yard unless I completely shut him in and give him that option. But even then he's too busy going, well, where's everybody else? Why am I stuck in here? Let me out. So he's not focusing on his needs. He's just focusing on where everybody else is. So he's so focused on the herd mentality rather than what do I need, the individual mentality. So I think there are some times when you can deviate from the don't put it in the bucket, when it is truly for their best interest and there is a solid good reason why you aren't offering instead. So yeah, it's had a great impact on him, and having the free access on the yard, I've seen all of my other herd members in that salt bucket. I've seen every single herd member at the peppermint bucket, and I see everybody drink from the water trough on the yard on a very regular basis throughout the winter and the rest of the year. So it's a really good combination. I'd love to hear if you've got a combination of what you have on your yard and how it works for you and why. I'm really interested in learning how other people do things, because I only know how I do things. So spread it, let me know, put in the comments below. And I think that that's enough waffling from me today. So I'm going to leave it there. Make sure you're connected with us on the Facebook page, join the Facebook group, and check us out on Instagram and _Willa for virtual daily updates on the herd. Also, check out the YouTube channel. There's a big archive of all my Thursday Thinks and a lot of other videos that I have produced over the past 10 months, maybe. So I will see you all again next week for my next Thursday Thinks, and I'll see you then. Bye.